Hey everybody, Erek here. Thanks for tuning in today. I am very excited because today we are modding this Game Boy Advance right here with a brand new IPS laminated from FunnyPlaying's screen, a new shell, a couple of other things, new buttons. I'm really excited. I did a Game Boy Advance mod a few years ago and that turned out okay. We did a shell swap, a backlight screen. It wasn't a laminated thing and there was little dust particles underneath the glass that always drove me nuts. So I have the itch again to do another GBA mod. I'm really excited to see how this one turns out and just to see how far the tech has come. So before we get to the workbench, please leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and leave a comment down below. Let me know if you've done any Game Boy or Game Boy Color or Game Boy Advance mods. Oh, whatever. Let's go do this darn mod already. Now let's prep our work area. Here we have a king size work mat, which definitely was not king size. Our donor Game Boy Advance, which is a fuchsia pink Game Boy. I really love the color. Inside this pink box from yesterday's tech is a carrying case for the Game Boy and holds a few games. New buttons and bumpers, plastic shell which will fit the IPS laminated screen, sticker on the back, a alignment tool for the screen which you 100% need, and inside this box is the 32 and 40 pin connector for the screen. And here we have the IPS laminated screen, meaning the glass sits right on top of the LCD, so no dust or debris getting underneath. Now, all this stuff came from yesterday's tech, based out of South Australia. I love to support local Australians and Australian businesses when I can. And of course, they sent some really cool candied buttons for the Game Boy Advance as well. They have a lot on there. Now, don't forget, for the repair, we need our handy dandy iFixit set. I love this set. This is a very convenient toolkit and I highly recommend it for any repairs. First things first, we're going to use our tri-wing bit and disassemble every screw but one, which is right underneath the battery door, which is a normal Phillips or crosshead. Remove that back plate. Take the 3 screws out that secure the board to the frame. Now the next part is the tabs that hold the display flex in. If you haven't done this before, please be careful because once they're broken, that's kind of it. So yeah, use a lot of caution and then take that board out. Then of course, disassemble the rest. Take your buttons and membranes out. I'm going to be reusing the membranes. I bought new buttons, so that's that. So here's the inside of the original Game Boy Advance in pink. I love that color. And of course, comparing the new screen to the old screen. Big difference. Now you see this number here right next to the display connector. This tells us 40. So it's a 40 pin connector that we'll be using instead of 32. Sometimes they're 40, sometimes they're 32. Now this is the new shell. I wanted to use the pink shell and I couldn't because the FunnyPlaying IPS laminated screen is pretty much drop-in ready with these specific shells that are drop-in ready for the screens. They essentially have like a beveled edge to them that allows the screen to sit in with no adhesives, no tape, no nothing, so it's mess free, drop-in ready. You can cut the old shells, but I just wouldn't recommend it, and you would pretty much ruin it if you don't know what you're doing. Next up, we'll take all of our new buttons and bumpers and all that kind of plastic out of the packaging, drop it in, make sure everything fits and works, add our membranes in. Now, I did add some non-conductive tape or Kapton tape to the 32 pin portion of the new flex, just to make sure that there's no issues, of course. And once that's taped and kind of snugly out of the way, you can fold that out after the fact, put your flex connector in and get ready to put your alignment tool on top of the screen. It's kind of hard to see because it's clear. Of course, everything here is clear. Put in your flex connector from the LCD into the flex connector. Now, the next part is you have to take a foam piece that they provide for you and put it on top of a touch capacitive button that is at the bottom of the flex. This allows you to use touch controls to change the brightness of the screen without having to do any soldering, which is a true drop-in solder thing. Once that's sorted, reconnect the board using the 3 screws. Test to make sure that your buttons depress properly. Of course, some of the D-pads can be a bit bushy, I guess you want to call it. Realign your plastics and your bumpers and your trigger buttons and all that kind of good stuff and your power switch. Put the shell on and make sure everything is nice and snug, testing the buttons and the bumpers and making sure nothing feels weird. You shouldn't have to screw anything really hard because otherwise something could snap. And of course, secure that power button as well. Now we're going to place some batteries in. Everything's re-screwed. Battery door. And first time's a charm. Nothing like a repair that works right away. I tell you what, it's such a sigh of relief when these things work. So here we had a little bit of Final Fantasy Tactics and testing out my original Pokemon Yellow from my childhood. So snapping that in. So here we have it in the original aspect ratio, and then you can of course stretch it widescreen for Game Boy Advance, which I wouldn't recommend. It doesn't look really nice. And the next thing is really fiddly, and this took me a little bit of time to get worked out, was the sticker that goes on the back. Of course, I had to go in really closely to like eye align it, and it's not 100% perfect, but at least it doesn't have any bubbles in it, so I'm a happy camper. I don't mind. And of course, the last thing to do with any repair is peel the plastic off and admire your hard work. Looks fantastic, nice and crisp and clean, and no dust underneath the glass, which is exactly what we want. So there you have it. There is the FunnyPlaying IPS GBA screen mod, essentially drop-in solderless. It's a really cool and convenient way to upgrade your Game Boy Advance. And I gotta say, I had some reservations about swapping from the old pink shell, but I really like this clear shell. It reminds me of like the original Glacier Blue or whatever that I grabbed back when the GBA first came out. And I've been playing a lot of Pokemon Yellow as well on this one. I mean, I'm not one of those heathens that stretch the screen and have it be full screen, but I've just really been enjoying a more modern way to play Game Boy Advance, and this particular screen is the way to do it. And it's really not that difficult of a repair. I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of difficulty, I would probably say it's about like a 4. You know, it would bump up from there if you wanted to do soldering, but with the touch capacitive button at the bottom of the screen, it's incredibly convenient because you can literally just press the screen to toggle the brightness like this, and then, as I said before, you can long press and then just toggle through different settings like that. The only issue that I found with this particular screen is that sometimes the touch capacitive button thinks it's being pressed once it gets to that long press menu, so it'll start to cycle through things by itself. It may have to do with the way that that actual piece of the flex is bumped up to the glass, so I'll probably need to go in and readjust if I find that it's really bothering me. But literally the only thing that I feel that I'll need is just pressing at the bottom over here to toggle through the brightness, and it doesn't really do anything by itself here, so I usually keep it on a decent 10. The other thing that I'm missing for this repair is the USB-C lithium battery that you can drop in, which I'll get, and I would have got, but Yesterday's Tech didn't have it in stock, so I'll be keeping an eye out from there. And also shout out to Yesterday's Tech as well for answering some of my questions. I sent them a message on Instagram and just asked a few questions about the FunnyPlaying IPS screen, which we've got here, and yeah, I shout out to them. They seem really friendly. Go give them a follow on their Instagram page, and if you're in Australia or you want to be supporting them worldwide, I'll leave their website down below where you can order some really cool shells and extra buttons as well, like the one candied set of buttons that they sent to me, which is really cool. So there you have it. There's my favorite GBA mod that I've done so far. It's really cool, really easy, and really convenient to just drop something in and literally change the way that you play the game, because it's just so crisp and clear, and it's just the best way to play Game Boy Advance on like actual original GBA hardware. Pretty cool. Highly recommend that you check that out. And by the way, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and comment down below. Let me know if you're interested in Game Boy Advance or Game Boy Color modding, or if you just found this video interesting. And yeah, share with your friends and all that good stuff as well. So thanks so much for watching. We'll see you again on the next video. Take care.